So what national security powers does the president have? Surprisingly few or limited ones under the Constitution. The president is commander-in-chief. As commander-in-chief, it's pretty clear that the framers of the Constitution contemplated that in an emergency, the president would be able to act unilaterally to defend the country. Beyond that, I would argue in most cases, the president has to get approval from Congress. The president is, of course, responsible for the military, but that depends on Congress declaring war in most cases. President Bush had a theory of presidential power. A number of lawyers in the Bush administration advanced this, and Vice President Cheney was very central in this, called the unitary executive theory, which is the idea that it's a really radical idea that the president can set aside laws passed by Congress when, in the president's view, they infringe on executive power. This was used to justify violations of criminal law, torture, warrantless surveillance, and it effectively places the president above the law. When President Obama ran for office in 2007, he rejected the unitary executive theory, but as president, my argument in the book is that he followed many of the same, or reached many of the same conclusions using different reasoning. It's a danger for any one person to have too much power. I think the framers of the Constitution recognize this. In a theoretical sense, it is contrary to the system of checks and balances. In practical terms, what it means is that one person is not bound by the law and can make decisions that are violations of the law. To give specific examples, President Obama in 2011 decided that it was necessary to use military force against the Gaddafi regime in Libya, a terrible authoritarian regime that was killing civilians. But Congress had not authorized the use of military force. President Obama decided he could do so anyways. I don't think it was justified by the Constitution. That decision had some really bad consequences. Yes, Gaddafi was terrible, but when he was removed from power, there was a power vacuum in Libya. ISIS moved in. It's still a really chaotic and violent place today. Another example, President Bush, after September 11th, decided to order secretly waterboarding and sleep deprivation. These are human rights violations of criminal law. Because under the Bush administration's theory, he can make these decisions alone, he was able to set aside the law. And I think very bad consequences, because just the idea that you would order torture is, I think, hopefully most people would recognize as a serious mistake. It's also dangerous because it, not that this was their intention, but it unintentionally gives kind of ammunition to Al-Qaeda and ISIS to recruit against Americans. Say, hey, look, one of the strengths the United States has is we respect the rule of law, we respect human rights, and when torture is ordered, it's very hard to make that argument. I think that's a problem too. My hope is that Congress will assert itself, and there's some reason for optimism. So as I said, Congress has often been passive and acquiescent. They have deferred to the president about these decisions, but Congress has shown when it is moved to act, it's capable of action. The problem, the danger that I see is that the next president, I think, can very confidently say, looking at history, looking at the post 9/11 history, if I want to take some action, whether it's using military force, whether it's deciding what to do with prisoners at Guantanamo, whether it's deciding to order warrantless surveillance. Donald Trump has talked about bringing back torture, about waterboarding. He's talked even about killing the families of terrorists. I think whether it's a President Trump or President Clinton, they will understandably feel emboldened to act, knowing that it's likely that Congress will simply defer. That's the danger, is that the next president will look back and will say, hey, I've seen what's happened since September 11th. The presidents have ordered torture, they've ordered violations of criminal law using warrantless surveillance, they've ordered the use of military force, and they've done this largely with impunity. Why don't I do the same thing? I think that's my biggest concern.